Take a moment to read the comic on this slide. What does this say to you? Is it a monkey see, monkey do situation? In this brief comic, we are taught about social learning. It reminds us that we are all susceptible to learning behaviors from those we look up to, those responsible for raising us, even from the media we encounter, like this comic strip. Albert Bandura's social learning theory suggests that people can learn through observation, including direct instruction, modeling, and imitation. The social learning theory is relevant to the study of persuasion because it evaluates two elements that can be used to persuade a person's behavior: internal systems and external reinforcements. We can look at the reactions people have had to our actions and over time determine if those reactions persuaded us to change. We can also evaluate the effectiveness of socially rewarding or punishing consequences to our behavior. We may assume that a positive reinforcement will always garner the actions we want, when in fact, a negative reinforcement may be what actually persuades us to change the behavior. The 7 articles I reviewed dealt with social learning from a child's perspective, as well as from the adult perspective. The first article researched verbal aggression in children's television programming. I was surprised to learn that in only an hour of programming, there were about 18 acts of verbal aggression, and 80% of the time, the verbal aggression was not punished and portrayed as having either a positive or neutral outcome. Because the characters are easily identifiable to children, it promotes the use of verbal aggression as a socially acceptable behavior. It's worth mentioning that a number of studies have reported bullying in schools comes in the form of direct verbal aggression. Studies also show that there is merit to the belief that violent video games will lead to violent behaviors in those that play them. Specifically researched were male adolescents who wanted to be like the violent character in the game. These young men were aggressive and willing to cause harm to others after playing the game, even if the other person had done nothing to harm them. I also looked at how the relationship between a son and a mother in childhood carried forth into the romantic relationship of the son's adulthood. If the son perceived his mother's love positively, he was more likely to treat the women he had relationships with as an adult in a loving and respectful manner. We can be heavily influenced by interpersonal relationships and learn behavior that can last a lifetime. If we are shown love and respect by a role model, we are likely to mimic this behavior, supporting the social learning theory that we model our behavior after the role models in our lives. Lastly, I looked at how sex in television shows could affect how a viewer feels about a one-night stand. Interestingly, sexual behavior as a socially learned behavior doesn't follow the same predictions as the ones we have previously discussed. In one study, viewers were shown a TV show of a woman in a one-night stand, either regretting her decision the next day or brushing it off as no big deal and willing to engage in another. Social learning theory would expect that women who had never had a one-night stand would be more prone to model the behavior if the one-night stand was shown in a positive light. But what we saw was that regardless of the negative or positive consequences, women who had not previously had a one-night stand reported a greater likelihood of engaging in one in the future, and that negatively rewarded behavior did not deter it from being modeled. In conclusion, social learning theory can be seen in children and adults. It is evident through the studies I reviewed that social learning does happen through interpersonal relationships and through the media to which we are exposed. We need to be cognizant of how what we see and who we interact with will shape us as individuals. A final thought. I would like to see more studies of social learning behavior that span a longer amount of time, maybe following the same person for a year in an effort to undo the negatively learned behaviors and measuring if it is at all possible to change the behaviors through other social learning. Thanks so much for listening.